Let's rewind time a bit by about nearly 20 years. The year's 2004, you go over to your stepbrother's house, or at least stepbrother at the time, you whip out the GameCube controllers, and he pulls out the newest Mario Party at the time, being Mario Party 6. You play it, you have a great time, and it just feels warm and fun and amazing, at least until stars get stolen. That was my first experience with the Nintendo GameCube. I loved the system, it was amazing, and it's led to so many great gaming memories since that year, and I think still it's Nintendo's best console. The games on it were very, very creative. Nintendo was innovative. There were new ideas like WarioWare, Luigi's Mansion, Pikmin, so many creative ideas that started and had a domino effect and led to many new Nintendo franchises being commonplace, and honestly, I would never replace the GameCube, no matter how poorly it's sold. And many people agree with me. Many people are also nowadays nostalgic for the Nintendo GameCube. I mean, look back to the pandemic, how much GameCube game prices rose. Many people have so many memories of the Nintendo GameCube, and I still think it is Nintendo's best console. But fast forwarding, nowadays we have the Nintendo Switch. Now, the Nintendo Switch is great in its own right, has an absolutely amazing library of games, is Nintendo's first handheld and home console hybrid, meaning that you can play it in any situation. It's also one of Nintendo's best consoles. I seriously love my Nintendo Switch, and I also would not replace it for the world. But one problem Nintendo really has, and it's always kind of been a problem with Nintendo, they're kind of horrible with backwards compatibility or letting their legacy content be, on their newest console. Now, Nintendo Switch has Nintendo Switch Online, where you can play, NES, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, all that stuff. You can play all that on your Nintendo Switch if you have the online subscription, but you aren't allowed to play all the games. But one of Nintendo's biggest console omissions is the Nintendo GameCube. You cannot play Nintendo GameCube games on the Switch through, usual means. Or so you think. You see, we're living in an era right now of gaming where remakes and remasters are all the rave. Everyone's doing them. It's complete nostalgia bait, but honestly, I'm kind of here for it. Many people are nostalgic, like I said, for the GameCube generation, so naturally, GameCube games are really being brought back. So today's video is going to be all about GameCube games that you can play on your Nintendo Switch right now. Of course, next year we have Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door being remade, so that's a big one to look forward to. And of course, there's speculation about other GameCube games getting the remaster/remake treatment, specifically like Metroid Prime, or Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, or Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. A lot of games are in the talkings of coming to the Nintendo Switch, but we are going to talk about the ones that are here now that you can play at this very moment on the Nintendo Switch. And being that Black Friday is fast approaching, these could all be on sale for you to pick up. So if you're a GameCube gamer like me, definitely hit that like button and subscribe down below. I know this is a really long intro, but we're going to be in for a wild ride of a video. So without any further ado, you guys, let's get right on into the video. Before we even touch on the games, there's actually a couple controllers I really wanted to shout out here. Let's start off with these admittingly pretty cheap Joy-Cons from Amazon. I don't remember the company, but they're these bad boys. These are GameCube Style Joy-Cons. Traditional Joy-Con shapes and styles and form factor, all that kind of jazz. But as you can tell by the right Joy-Con, it's got a GameCube kind of design to it. Honestly, these are pretty great Joy-Cons. I mean, they're not like revolutionary. They're definitely cheaper quality. They're not super high quality. But if you're someone like me who just kind of wants that GameCube feel in the palm of your hands, but don't want a big clunky thing, which I'm going to get into with the next controller, these controllers aren't bad to have. And the form factor of the controllers is actually slightly curved and bulky at the back to make it a little more comfortable to hold. I actually do find these Joy-Cons pretty comfortable to hold because of their form factor on the Nintendo Switch. Of course, there's no like NFC support, at least I don't think there is, and there's no HD rumble, but they basically got all the other bells and whistles. So if you want a good cheap pair of Joy-Cons, they're on Amazon, at least I think they still are. I'll leave links to everything you can buy down in the description down below. But yeah, if you want a cheap pair of Joy-Cons, nothing special, but you kind of still want that GameCube feel, I do recommend these ones. Now, if you want something a little more high in price and a little bulkier, but you really want that kind of GameCube controller feel, look no further than the Nixie Wizard. Now, it looks like just a GameCube Wavebird, basically, when you have it like this, but you can detach these, the two sides of the controller and attach them to your Nintendo Switch, so you can have a truly portable GameCube feeling controller. It almost looks like that GameCube keyboard from back in the day. Now, of course, these are more premiumly priced, they're more expensive, but it is a high quality controller. They have Hall effect joysticks, so Joy-Con drift should never be an issue with these. It definitely has a more traditional GameCube controller feel with the more protruding buttons. It definitely feels more quality like a GameCube controller. My main issue with this controller is that there's no specific carrying case for this controller. If they made a carrying case that fit the Nixie Pro or Nixie Wizard Pro whatever controller in the case, then I would always have these controllers on because they are great controllers. But as of right now, they don't really have that, but I do still really recommend this controller if you're more so of a GameCube purist. Now, obviously, it doesn't have the same feel and quality of an actual GameCube controller, which I've seen some reviewers nitpick about that, but it's a third-party controller. Like, you can't expect it to feel exactly like a GameCube controller. The triggers are obviously more clicky, they're not analog, so there are definitely differences from a traditional GameCube controller, but if you do want the closest thing that you can get, I do think this is a great one. Now, of course, there are many other options as well, but those are the two that I personally have. If you have any other GameCube Joy-Cons or controllers for your Nintendo Switch, let me know down in the comments down below what you think. Actually, I tell a lie. I almost completely forgot about this controller, the very first GameCube style Switch controller I ever got. The Power A GameCube Nintendo Switch controller. Now, this controller feels definitely way more like a GameCube controller than the other ones. I'd say if you want something that feels the closest to a Nintendo GameCube controller, besides, that isn't an officially Nintendo licensed controller, this is about the closest you are going to get. It's got the same form factor, it's got literally everything, even these triggers that are, I believe, not actually analog, but they got the analog feel that the GameCube controller, the actual GameCube controllers do. It's a great controller. I actually haven't used it in a while, just because I actually do end up playing more so in handheld mode as opposed to, docked. But it's a great controller for those of you who play in docked mode, but like having a GameCube controller. One thing about this controller is that it takes AA batteries. It doesn't use any kind of cable charging, but there is a corded option. If you want a wired experience, you can get the wired controller, or you can get the wireless one and just have to use AA batteries. I do think it's a great controller alternative for those people who want a more traditional experience but don't want to get an authentic GameCube controller plus the adapter. This one's a pretty good one, but for the docked experience. Alright, let's get into the games. There are honestly quite a few Nintendo GameCube games on the Nintendo Switch. I'm quickly going to sizzle reel through some that came to my mind that I currently do not own, because I own quite a few, but there's also quite a few that I don't. So, Resident Evil. I believe Resident Evils 0, 1, and 4 are on the Nintendo Switch, at least from the GameCube. Obviously, 5 and 6 are as well, but they aren't on the GameCube. So if you want some of the OG Resident Evil experiences from the GameCube era, definitely pick those up. I'm not sure about 2 and 3, but I know we definitely don't have Code Veronica X. So we're waiting on still a few Resident Evil titles if they want to make their way over. But yeah, Resident Evil definitely got a decent amount of love on the Nintendo Switch, so if you want some of those OG spooky titles, I highly recommend those. Next up is Karuga, which is also from the GameCube, now on the Switch. Now, this one came out a while ago, I think. I actually didn't play Karuga either on the GameCube or the Switch, but I know that it's a shmup, an aerial shooter, where you take control of a jet or a spaceship, whichever, and I believe the whole thing is that the projectiles that are shooting at you are certain colors, and you have to swap between colors to have certain projectiles go through you, and, have others hit you. I don't know how to explain it. It's a really complicated game to explain. But I do believe it also, if you have a Switch, you can also turn the Switch horizontally so that it looks like an iPhone, and you can play it like that. I could be wrong on that. I'll have some like gameplay footage up from someone else if I am correct in that statement. If it's not, then I'll just cut the segment out. But nevertheless, Karuga, I don't think this one actually has a physical release. I believe it's only digital, unless you get it from like maybe like PlayAsia or something. I'm not sure. I think there was like a Japanese or an Asian copy of this game, but in North America we didn't get a physical release, because I am all about physical releases. I'm about physical media. So if you guys want that, you'll have to order from Asia. But Karuga, I've heard really, really good things about it, and you should definitely give it a play. The last one that came to my head, of course, there could be more, you know, after this whole list. I could have missed a couple, and if I did, let me know down in the comments below. But Baten Kaitos 1 and 2, I'm not sure if these are out yet. I'm not sure if they're, you know, like available now to get, or if they're still coming up. But I know that it's a heavily acclaimed series. I personally never played it because it's not my kind of game. But if Baten Kaitos is your thing, if you played it back on the GameCube, or I believe it's a strategy RPG or some kind of RPG, if it's your kind of genre, looking like your kind of game, definitely give it a playthrough on the Nintendo Switch. Or if you want to get it on the GameCube, I believe they're not too expensive on the GameCube, but I believe they're coming as a bundle on the Switch, so I'd just say get it on the Switch when it releases. Alright, now let's go on to the games that I actually do have and have played. Now, this one is a kind of asterisk one, that's why I'm starting off with it. It's one that doesn't really count, but kind of does. That's Mario Party Superstars. I'm throwing it in here because there are remakes of GameCube games, or GameCube mini games on here, sorry, from 4, 5, 6, and 7. There's quite a few of them. So if you've played the GameCube Mario Party games, you know, 4, 5, 6, and 7, like I said, there's definitely some familiar material in here. And not to mention, this is very much a return to classic Mario Party as we remember it from the GameCube days, with some modernizations, whatever. So if you do want a GameCube-like Mario Party experience and remember some of those classic GameCube Mario Party games, this game is the one for you. But do keep in mind, it's more influenced from the Nintendo 64 era, because it has the Nintendo 64 boards, and the majority of the minigames are from the Nintendo 64. But, like I said, there are some GameCube minigames in here, so there is something for you. This one's also kind of an asterisk because you can't get it anymore. If you want to get it, you'll have to pay a little more money, and that's Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and of course, specifically for Super Mario Sunshine. If you haven't played Super Mario Sunshine, you're playing as Mario, you're on Isle Delfino, gets covered in paint, Princess Peach gets kidnapped, Bowser and Bowser Jr. wreak havoc, yada yada yada. You kind of know the deal. It's a 3D Mario game. Definitely the most unique 3D Mario title in the fact that there's more mechanics than just running and jumping and all that. You have Flood, which is a water nozzle pump thing where you can clean up paint, you can hover, you can do all that kind of jazz. Mario Sunshine is a really good game. It's got its flaws, it's got its issues. I personally can't stand the camera. The controls are a little bit wonky, but if you like 3D Mario games, this is one for you. And like I said, it is a little harder to find, but I do believe you can still find it in some stores. If you look around for it, if like you really look for it, you could probably find it, but I'm not sure about its real availability nowadays. But Super Mario 3D All-Stars is a classic, because also you get 64 and Galaxy along with Sunshine, so really good deal there. Next up is SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. Now, Battle for Bikini Bottom wasn't exclusively on the GameCube or anything like that, but it was a game that did come out on the Nintendo GameCube that lots of people do remember and have childhood memories for. It's a 3D platformer where you play as the titular characters, SpongeBob, as well as Patrick and Sandy, and you traverse through many different levels as you try to defeat Plankton and his army of robots. It's honestly a very fun 3D platformer. I do think the original is better because the remake did mess up a couple things. It doesn't have as much polish as the original, but it is still a very good 3D platformer, very competent 3D platformer, if that is your genre. If you like games like Banjo-Kazooie, that's kind of the game I can kind of compare this game closest to. You go into a world, you can explore it completely, and there's loads of golden collectibles for you to collect. It's very Banjo-Kazooie, more so than Mario, so that's how I kind of think of this game. So, if you like 3D platformers, I do recommend this one, though obviously keep in mind, it is a SpongeBob game, it is meant for kids, so it's a lot on the easier side. So, if you want a simple platformer to run through, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated is probably your game. Another game that isn't necessarily exclusive to the GameCube, but was from that generation, is Tai the Tasmanian Tiger. Now, keep in mind that I do believe the second and third game are also out on the Nintendo Switch at the moment, but I could be wrong. I know the second game is, maybe the third game is, but nevertheless, Tai the Tasmanian Tiger, you play as Tai the Tasmanian Tiger, in a kind of platforming kind of adventure where I honestly, I don't really remember the story much for this one, I'll be completely honest, but I do remember you have a boomerang that you throw around, and everyone has these wild Australian accents. There's this bird that talks to you. I don't know. I remember this game being really, really cool. I did replay it a little bit before, but I do remember the controls being a little bit wonky. But it is a good game. It's cheap. It's a little bit of fun. If you want to relive it, if you grew up with this game, which actually quite a few people did grow up with this game, definitely pick it up, give it a playthrough. It's a fun time. It's like a cute little romp. And there's like 3 games on the console. And I believe there actually is a 4th game as well that's like a 2D platformer. But nevertheless, Tai the Tasmanian Tiger, good day, mate. Oh, God. Next up, Metroid Prime Remastered. Now, I actually did play Metroid Prime a little bit when I was younger, but never made it that far. I actually have been playing Metroid Prime Remastered on the Twitch channel. If you guys want to go follow me on Twitch, please go and do so. I've been playing through this game, trying to beat it for the first time, and wow, this is an amazing remaster. It looks so good. It's so much fun. I'm really enjoying my time with Metroid Prime. Hey, that rhymed. And that rhyme too! Hey! Dude, I'm on a roll today. But nevertheless, if you're into sci-fi first-person shooters that are very big, elaborate, confusing, this is your kind of game, I guess. I think the only thing I can really compare this to, if you guys have never played Metroid Prime before, is Halo, but less linear, I guess? Like, an open Halo is the best way I can describe this, but the single player, not the multiplayer. Nevertheless, though, Metroid Prime, really, really good one. I will be dumbfounded if they do not bring the second game to the Nintendo Switch, because why would you have the first game and potentially the 4th game, but not the second and third games? Really, really weird, in my opinion. Like with Luigi's Mansion, like, just bring them all. What's the point of holding back? Just my opinion. Next up is Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania. Now, this is a remake of the GameCube titles, just repackaged and put on the Nintendo Switch and other platforms as well. It's Super Monkey Ball. I don't really know what more to say about this one. It's kind of self-explanatory. If you've played Super Monkey Ball, you kind of know what to expect here. It's a puzzly kind of game where you're a monkey in a ball, and you gotta roll to the end of a level and make it to the finish. Now, it seems simple enough, but these levels can get hard because it's completely kind of physics-based. Depends on how you roll. There are holes and things for you to fall through. There's narrow ledges that you have to go over. It's very, very hard. It is a very hard game. Don't let the fun artwork deceive you. I personally always struggle with this game. Not in a bad way, but in a way that's like, it's like an arcadey kind of game. It starts off easy, gets really, really difficult. It's a cheap game, it's fun, it's mindless, it's Super Monkey Ball. It's nothing too complicated. I do recommend this one, if you are a fan of this kind of game, of course. Next up is Tales of Symphonia Remastered. Now, this one kind of launched pretty rough. It had a lot of issues in the beginning, but they've patched a lot of them out, and I believe this game's at a state where I can say, yeah, it's a recommend. It's an action RPG where you play a character named Lloyd, and I'll be honest, I do also forget the main story for this game as well. This is a game that I've never really truly sat through and played through, but it actually, now that it's on the Switch and is getting patched, is on my wanna playlist. It is something I probably also will stream. Keep an eye out for that whenever I decide to do it. But it is actually an RPG that I can get into because the combat isn't boring. I mean, I find the turn-based combat in games pretty, like, boring and tedious, but here it's all about action. It's an action RPG, so you're actually hacking and slashing your enemies. It's a good time. I do remember the main character, Lloyd, or one of the characters, just being kind of annoying just because of the arrogance. I do believe that was Lloyd, but nevertheless, I really can't wait to play through this game again, and if you're a fan of action RPGs or have played any of the Tales games, you'll probably like this one if you haven't already played it. The last game, or should I say games, that I have to show you today is Pikmin 1 and 2 HD. Now, it's just Pikmin's 1 and 2 HD. If you don't know about the Pikmin franchise, it's all about these little creatures called Pikmin that you pluck from the ground, you throw them and make them do your bidding. It's a game that I personally never gotten into. It's just not my kind of game. If you're into the kind of like resource management, I don't know how to describe this genre of game. Basically, your objective is you have to repair your ship so that you can escape the planet in a certain amount of time. I believe it's 30 days, or at least that's the first game. I don't know much about the second game, but the first game is you gotta collect parts for your ship to repair it, to escape the planet in, I think it's 30 days or something to that effect. It's definitely a niche game that Nintendo loves to push, but if it's your kind of game, if it looks like your cup of tea, definitely pick it up. This game did get the treatment of all 4 games are now available on the Nintendo Switch, so you can play 1, 2, 3, and 4. So, if this kind of game is your cup of tea, you have the whole lineup on the Nintendo Switch at your disposal. So, yeah, Pikmin 1 and 2, highly recommend if it's your cup of tea. It's, like I said, definitely a niche title. So there you have it, guys. That is a lot of games from the Nintendo GameCube generation that you can play right now on your Nintendo Switch. Like I said, Paper Mario is coming out next year, and I'm sure there's going to be at least 1 or 2 others that are going to come along eventually. But being someone who's a huge fan of the GameCube, I feel like the Nintendo Switch is absolutely perfect. Because Nintendo 64, you can play those games on the Nintendo Switch, but you don't own them. They're through a service that you have to subscribe to, and once you unsubscribe from it, or once they shut down that service, you can't play them anymore. But these games, you can own them forever. They are yours. Never have to return them, never have to anything. So that is glorious. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff down below. Hit that notification bell so that you're notified of when I upload videos. And check out the Luigi's Mansion 4 concept series, which is happening right now. Episode 4 just came out last week, and Episode 5 will be coming out this week. So hopefully you enjoy those videos. So until next time, you guys, I'll see you all in the next video.